Whatever.
Okay, there you go.
I'm so glad I started recording when I did.
You start recording?
I
Nice.
did.
Nice.
I did.
Nice.
I got it.
It's got its wing out.
So guys, here's the story. There's a stink bug flying around Brandon's room, and I started recording it at like the perfect time.
Oh man, I started recording my audio too. That's awesome.
Oh, that's what's up, bro. I can't wait to watch that.
That was a good one.
Right. What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Rantcast, and today I've added a pop filter to my microphone because while I was editing the one we did before this one, I noticed that every time I said something that started with the letter P, it sounded like someone was kicking me in the stomach because it came just all through my subwoofer. Anyway, guys, that's now been fixed. We got a pop filter. We got Brandon. Today we're going to be talking about the hypocrisy of Samsung. I know we're a little bit late to this. I know the Galaxy S5 has been out for quite a while now, but check it out right here. Look at that. Oh man, it's got the giant camera bump and all that. Regardless though, it's going to be another short episode, just in the trend of trying to keep these episodes shorter. But with the Galaxy S20 and S20 Plus and S20 Ultra 5G, I just want to start by saying, where is the headphone jack, Samsung? You remember that thing that you bragged about having for so long after Apple removed it and now it's just gone? Do you remember that, Brandon? You remember those days?
I do remember that. I remember those days and all the commercials and everything.
Yeah, oh, speaking of the commercials, all of Samsung's friggin' ingenious ads that they had making fun of Apple, they're all gone. All of them are gone because you now have to have an adapter with the Samsung Galaxy S20 and S20 Plus and S20 Ultra. All of them don't have a headphone jack. And another thing that I want to touch on about that is they don't even include an adapter. I know Apple doesn't include one anymore either. I know they stopped including that when the iPhone X came out, but at least they gave you... No, they discontinued it with the XS. My 10 came with one. So at least Apple gave you 2 years of including that little, 2-cent adapter, but it's whatever. Samsung does not include one.
Yeah, that just infuriates me too.
It is,
It's annoying that Apple stopped doing that, but come on, Samsung. I mean, if you're going to make fun of Apple, don't do exactly what they're doing.
And do it worse without including a solution in the box.
Exactly.
But whatever. Let's go over just some of the basic specs of this new Samsung phone. So, right off the bat, they talk about cameras, which is supposed to be, the biggest feature of these new cameras. Let's talk about it for a second, because they're not as good as I had expected them to be. Granted, I've only been able to play with them at, Best Buy. But the first thing I want to touch on is this space zoom up to 100 times. First off, to everyone who thinks that that's 100 times optical zoom, go to bed, okay? You're not fitting 100 times optical zoom into a phone, alright? It's got, if I remember right, this phone has, this is the zoom camera right here, this little square thing. I believe that this has the capability to do 10 times zoom optically, but anything past that is digital. And all digital is picture you using your iPhone and zooming in on the screen like this to look at an image. That's what digital zooming is. That's what it is on iPhones. That's what it is on any camera that does digital or software zoom. The second thing is, let's see if we can find this here. This right here, 108 megapixels. Megapixels are not everything, okay? Past a certain point, it stops mattering, and Samsung actually proved this. If you remember when the Galaxy S6 was out, that had a 12 megapixel sensor, and then when the S7 came out, guess how many megapixels that had? 12. They decreased the amount of pixels so they could fit bigger pixels into the sensor, and that is what's more important in cameras past a certain point, of course. But when I'm taking these pictures at Best Buy, of course, Best Buy isn't the best place to be testing these phones, but it's the only place I'm going to be doing it because I don't want to buy one, and price is something that we'll talk about pretty soon too. Don't worry. So I'm at Best Buy and I'm like, oh, it's not even in 108 megapixels by default. So I switch it, and the issue with this is this is the main shooter right here, this camera. So you've got your ultra wide, your wide, and your telephoto. This actually, contrary to popular belief, this is not a camera. This is actually a time of flight sensor, if I remember correctly. All I know for sure is it's not an actual camera sensor. So ultra wide, wide, and telephoto. With that, the wide does not have the ability to change your aperture anymore. You remember back in the S9 and the S10, they were bragging like, oh, maybe not even in the S10, right. But I know for sure the S9, they were like, this is revolutionary. This is the first thing ever. Look at this, guys. You can change it from f1.5 to f2.4, and I thought that was pretty cool. But now it's gone. It's fixed at f1.8. So when you switch your megapixel count up to 108 megapixels, that depth is very, very shallow. Let me see if I can explain. So if you've ever seen one of these phones in person, let me switch this back. There we go. The iPhone 11 Pro. It's got its 3 cameras. Your depth of focus is pretty much just literally like the width of one of these circles. That's all you get, okay? And it's very useful for like landscape photography. But if you want to take a picture of like say you take a picture of this is a I think it's an 18 watt fast charge brick that came with my iPhone 11. But if you take a picture of it like this, straight from the top, either you're gonna have this part in focus and the prongs out of focus, or if you focus on the top of the prongs, the base of it's gonna be out of focus. So that's just a little the best example I can give of how shallow that focus depth is, or the focus range, I guess, would be the more proper term. And it gets worse when you go to do your 8K video. 8K video is another big thing that Samsung's advertising with this phone. I think they talk about it up here. Yeah, this 8K video snap. With the S20 Ultra, I'm not sure how it affects the S20 and S20 Plus, but I know for sure on the S20 Ultra, it crops in, like, literally it looks like it's 2 times cropped in, and I think that's because, like, and correct me if I'm wrong on this because I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's using data from all 3 of the cameras here to be able to create that 8K video, because 8K is equivalent to 33 megapixels. And with that, the autofocus, I don't know why, but the autofocus is just not there. It cannot hold focus on anything, and actually Talos I think it was on his Talks channel, but this guy Talos of Tech actually did a video vlogging in 8K with the Galaxy S20 Ultra, and I'll link that in a card in the top right corner of the screen, just so you can get an idea of how bad it actually is with autofocus. But cameras aside, another thing I want to touch on is 5G. Now, at the time of recording this, 5G is kind of entirely useless because let me try to explain the state of 5G in the United States right now. So what I've got AT&T on my iPhone, and it actually says 5GE now, since I think the iOS 13 update introduced that. Don't be confused. 5GE is not 5G. It is literally just LTE. You know how I know that? These phones do not support 5G. iPhones don't support 5G. Literally, all it is just LTE with a different badge. It's the same thing that they did with the iPhone 4S, saying 4G instead of 3G after the iOS 7 update. It was still 3G. It just said 4G instead. I don't know why they do it, but AT&T's done it 2 times now. And a couple other things about 5G is there's not like 5G. All it is the 5th generation of cellular technology. And there's different like variants of it, I guess. You've got your high band, which is your really crappy range, but you can get like faster than gigabit speeds with it, which is actually pretty insane. The downside to that is you have to be standing like right by one of the towers to be able to get that speed. If you go around a corner of a building, you pretty much lose it and go back to just 4G. And Marquez Brownlee actually did a video on that. I'll leave that linked in another card right here. But another thing that you can do with 5G is actually what T-Mobile's doing, and T-Mobile is actually one of my favorite carriers right now, other than AT&T. But what they're doing is they're doing a long band version of it, which pretty much what that means is you can do I think it's somewhere like in the range of 150 megabits a second over a lot more range. That's what I'm pretty sure, at least. I'm not entirely sure on that. That's just what I'm recalling just off the top of my head. But it's also in very limited spots in the United States. Not many places have real 5G. And it's, like I said, right now, useless. It's going to take a few years for it to become widely adopted, just like 4G did. And once it does, sure, it's going to be great. But right now, if you're buying a phone just because it has 5G, you're retarded.
That's pretty much right. Especially since people are burning down cell towers because of a certain theory, conspiracy theory.
We're going to touch on this briefly here. So another thing about 5G is people think 5G is responsible for a certain global pandemic happening right now. I can't say the name because you all know why, but hopefully you know what I'm talking about. There are people burning down 5G towers because they think it's responsible for starting the pandemic. What's going on, guys? Come on.
When I first saw the headline, I thought, like, no, there's no way people are that
No, it's
dumb.
real.
Yeah, it's legit. It's real. It's a thing going around right now that people think is causing this thing, this pandemic. But yeah, it
I don't
makes me want to just
understand.
slam my head on the desk.
Yeah, seriously, I don't understand how people can be that stupid to be like, oh man, this whole thing started when my iPhone started saying 5GE. Two things wrong with that. Your iPhone started saying 5GE in September with the iOS 13 update, and iPhones don't support 5G. So, case closed, you're retarded. Again.
The worst thing that comes from this thing that's going on is, I think, the stupidity is probably the real pandemic. But yeah. All right.
Okay. Anyway, with that aside, I'm done ranting for just a second now. But hey, I'm allowed to do that. It's the Rantcast after all. Back over here, I'm like having to reach around this pop filter because it's like super janky. But whatever, it sounds good. So we've already talked about the 108 megapixels, and one more thing I do want to say about this is I swear that this phone takes more realistic and sharp looking photos than the Galaxy S20 Ultra does. I unfortunately have no way of getting the full 108 megapixel file to me because I don't have a Samsung device, so I can't do that like Samsung Direct crap, whatever their version of AirDrop is. But I'm not even joking when I say that the photos that you take on an iPhone 11 Pro are sharper and more true to life because Samsung is still doing their like oversaturation like correction whenever you take a photo, and that's been a thing since friggin' I think the S5. My S5 did it, my S7 did it. It might have been a thing on the S4, but I never had an S4, so I don't know. Anyway, going back to this here, mobile photography. Oh boy, look at this. Here, let's actually look at this really quick. So the Galaxy S20 and S20 Plus give you 64 megapixels. You only get 108 megapixels if you buy the S20 Ultra 5G. And I think now might be the best time to talk about pricing. So we're just going to open this up in a new tab really quick and look at some prices on this. Now look at this. See how it says that, oh, $500, but as soon as you say that you do not have a device to trade in, starting price, whoa, where did it go? There you go. Starting price just jumped up to $1,000. Okay? Remember when the iPhone 10 started at $1,000 and everyone was like, I can't believe a phone costs this much money. Now Samsung does it and everyone's like, oh, well, when you think about everything that's in it, it actually makes sense. And I'm just like, are you serious? The S20 Plus starts at $1,200, which is actually higher than Apple if you actually look. The 11 Pro Max starts at $1,100, not $1,200. And now it gets even worse. The S20 Ultra starts at $1,400.
Oh my!
Do you know how much I spent on my first MacBook? My first MacBook was $1,300, and that's a computer. This is a phone. Okay, now I understand that iPhones are expensive, right? But this is like a new territory. There's only two storage options. You get 128 or 512. For me, 128 is not enough space. I've already well surpassed that on my iPhone 11 Pro. So if you wanna quadruple your storage, it's now $1,600. I don't know why the website keeps doing this, but $1,600 you can be spending on a phone.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Because they know people are going to get like the 5G Ultra. I mean, they know that they're power users. They want the best of the best, and they're not gonna. 128 gigs is not going to be enough.
All I'm going to say though is the price point of the Ultra does make sense, because when you think about it, that thing has I think it's got like 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is quadruple what my MacBook Air has. That's a lot of RAM. And the cameras, while they've got some issues, which Samsung claims they can be fixed with software, but I'm not entirely sure if that's like actually true. But you know, it could potentially be worth it if you just want to buy this like powerhouse phone that you won't have to upgrade from for like 5 years, well, 2 years, depending on how long it's supported by Android. Another thing I don't like about Android is the very limited support life that they have. My S7 actually lost support not even a year after it came out. It stopped receiving Android updates. Meanwhile, my iPhone 5S, I don't know where it is. Oh, it's right over there. But that thing actually was supported until I think iOS 12. I think 12 I think was the last iOS that supported it, and that was 2019, and the phone came out in 2013. So I'm just saying iPhones are generally supported longer than any Android devices. Anyway, though, going back to the Samsung website here, we've got, we've already talked about that, but check this out. Zoom in 100 times and find the shots you never knew existed. This is not at all what it looks like when you zoom in that much on the S20 Ultra. I'm just gonna say that right now. It doesn't look anything like that. Like, it doesn't. It just doesn't look that good. And I guess you can't like change it yourself, but okay, so I was right. So the S20 and S20 Plus give you 3 times optical zoom. The S20 Ultra gives you 10 times optical zoom, which that's pretty respectable for a phone. But this space zoom crap, get out of here. It's useless, okay? I think up to 30 times it looks okay, but once you go past that, you can tell it's just like getting super diminished. And
you know what's annoying to me is that they literally like engraved it onto that little camera bump.
Oh,
it says
yeah.
Space zoom 100 times. That is so annoying to me. It's so tacky.
So, look at this, guys. We're back at the top of this site now. What made you feel the need to just engrave space zoom 100 times permanently into this stupid camera? And you guys thought the iPhone 11 Pro had a ugly camera design? Look at that. That's even worse.
That is so tacky, man. Like, they gotta really advertise that. And oh man.
Hey, what really if maybe put the Samsung logo there instead?
That would look better, honestly.
You don't need to say space zoom 100 times. It's stupid. Why do you need to put that on the back of your phone? But whatever. And guys, another thing about this is I actually forgot to touch on this earlier. It only comes in 2 colors. You've got Cosmic Black and Cosmic Gray. See, they're going for the space theme, but they can't call it Space Gray because Apple already has that.
You know what? That actually bugs me a little bit because they could have called it Cosmic Zoom.
Yeah, they could have called it Cosmic Zoom,
cool.
But I think the reason they called it Space Zoom is because like it's like, oh, you're zooming through space and all this whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's Samsung's naming for this is kind of stupid. And this phone is heavy. It's very thick and it's very heavy. And that's because the battery in it is massive, but it doesn't get much better battery life than the iPhone 11 Pro just because iOS is better optimized for power management. That's the word I was looking for. iOS is better optimized for power management because I'm pretty sure we've touched on this before, but if you have like iOS, it's only ever going to be on an iPhone, whether that be an iPhone 11 Pro or an iPhone 7 or whatever it is. iOS is only going to be on an iPhone or an iPod Touch. Notice I didn't say iPad. That's because those are on iPad OS now, which is pretty much iOS, but it is a little bit different. Android, however, has to be on Samsung, LG, Huawei, Oppo, all these other companies have to like put their like little spin on Android, and I think Samsung has, it's called One UI, I think. It used to be called TouchWiz, but in the new versions of Samsung phones, it's called Samsung's One UI, which even that name sounds tacky. Ooh, the One UI. It's like kind of like the YouTube One design, but Samsung's like, ooh, one. Cool.
It's a good number.
Yeah, it is. Whatever, though. Going back, oh, look at this. All right. Let's go back to where we were on the camera side of things. What's that? Oh, it's 8K again. 8K. It is impressive that it's in a smartphone, but it's useless because it can't hold focus on anything. Now, they might have fixed that by the time this episode comes out, but as of now, it's still a big issue, which pretty much renders 8K useless. And another thing that I want to point out about just video in general on Samsung phones is that in my experiences, they have not looked as good as videos coming off of an iPhone. And while they're the same resolution, 4K is 4K, but iPhones record at a higher bitrate than Samsung phones do. And what that means, bitrate's pretty much just the rate of data, I guess, is the best way I can explain it. So say this video that we're recording right now in OBS is 2560 by 1440 at 12 megabits a second. If I change that 12 megabits a second down to 2, the resolution would be the same, but it would look a lot more pixely, and that's just because there's less data being written, like about the video being written to the storage media. And the same goes for Samsung phones. Like if you record side by side in 4K with an iPhone 11 Pro and a Galaxy S20 Ultra, the iPhone is going to look better because of that higher bitrate. And iPhones have always been, I think, and a lot of other people think too, the best video out of a smartphone. But whatever. 8K. Oh wow, 8K video snap revolutionizes how you capture photo and video. So 8K, see here, 33 megapixels still. That's because 8K is equivalent to 33 megapixels, just like 4K is equivalent to 8 megapixels and 1080p is equivalent to 2 megapixels. Same thing. So
still pretty awesome. I have to give them credit. The fact that
it is cool.
8K is nice.
It is impressive that they can do 8K in a phone. Just the bitrate needs to be higher.
Yeah.
And you see here, 4K to 8K is 4 times bigger than 4K, or 8K is 4 times bigger than 4K. That is true, but it doesn't matter when the bitrate is so low. Like I'd rather just shoot in 4K because it actually looks cleaner. And like you can even see here. Even on their website, okay, it kind of went away, but look at the trees. Do you see the trees? Let's zoom in on that. You see that like artifacting there? That's compression artifacting, and that happens because of a low bitrate. And you can see it in the grass here too, and it's not just because I zoomed in. Even if I zoom out, it's still there. It still looks all compressy. That's compressy, whatever. But all that artifacting in the trees and the grass, that's caused by the low bitrate, and that's what I was trying to explain before, and I'm glad they actually demonstrated that on their own website. But
nice.
Oh man. 5G, oh boy. We're not even going to talk about this at all. Get out of here. No more 5G. And that's not just because iPhones don't have it, it's just because I find it useless. So, if you look at the actual phone itself, it's pretty. I'm not gonna lie, that's a pretty phone.
It is a nice phone.
It
Besides the Ultra having that dumb engraving, it's still a pretty nice phone.
The front of it not having that big notch like the iPhones have, like this makes the iPhone 11 look obsolete, which is kind of crazy. Like it just looks so clean, and there's no like biometric face scanning, but what there is a fingerprint sensor underneath the display, which I think I'd rather have that than a face unlock. Just my personal preference, but
same here, because I mean I like the face unlock on the iPhone's pretty nice, but it's still not perfect yet. Like I still have to
it's far from perfect.
Get it right, And I found Touch ID was really nice, and
Touch ID is super nice. I was actually playing with that iPhone 7 a while ago, and I was like, wow, this unlocks faster than my iPhone 11. Like, friggin' 3 years or 2 years apart, but the iPhone 7 unlocks faster. Wait, No, yeah, 3 years apart. The 7 came out in 16. The 10 came out in 2017. Regardless, 3 years apart, Touch ID unlocks faster, but there's that. The front of the S20 Ultra and S20 is incredibly pretty, and Samsung still does have the best phone display like on the market, even though they I don't think they're doing it anymore, but they made the panel in the iPhone 10 and half of the iPhone 10s's. But if you held a Galaxy S9 side by side with a iPhone 10, the S9 looked so much better, and I think Samsung did that on purpose. I think they actually give Apple like their crappier displays, which makes sense. You can't blame them. I personally think Apple should just start freaking making their own displays like Samsung does, but whatever. Now I'm pretty sure though LG makes all of the screens in the iPhone 11 Pro. But regardless of that, oh man. Deleting is so 2019, guys. Oh man. So here's where we go for storage. If you'll notice, you guys remember the S10 had a 1 terabyte internal storage option? That's gone. That ain't there no more. But they do still have a micro SD slot, which is good. I think it's on all 3 of them, on the S20 and S20 Plus and S20 Ultra, but you can allegedly expand it to 1.5 terabytes with a micro SD card if you want to spend that much money on a 1 terabyte micro SD card. They do exist now, which is actually kind of impressive. They can fit that much storage in. Let's see if I have one laying around here. Yeah, I do. So these things, these little things, you can now buy them in a 1 terabyte variant. Why is it not switching back? Oh, that's why. My bad. There you go. These things. You can buy these little cards in a 1 terabyte variant now. See, it's so small the camera won't even pull focus on it. Come on now.
That's crazy.
Look at that thing. Do you see this? It still won't pull focus on it.
Nuts.
I'm trying to give it as much... Whatever. You get the idea. Very, very small. Very small card. And you can get these things in 1 terabyte now. I can't stress that enough. 1 terabyte can fit in this. This is literally like... Look at that. Look at that. That could be 1 terabyte now. They're very expensive, but it's possible.
Oh my gosh.
It's insane,
nuts.
Dude. I
just took out
it.
a hard drive, replaced a hard drive from this old laptop, and the thing is, actually, I have it right here. This is just 500 gigabytes, this big thing. And this is a smaller hard drive yet. Yep. And now they can fit 1 terabyte in this small itty bitty thing is just insane.
It is insane, dude. Really quick back here, they go over this again, up to 512 internal, plus an additional 1 terabyte via micro SD card. And there's disclaimers on that, of course. But other than that, guys, there's pretty much just accessories with their crappy watch. I don't like Samsung's watches. Why are they a circle? Why can't they just be a square? The Apple Watch is square because it gives you more screen real estate, and a circle, just no thanks. But that's pretty much it. I mean, we could talk about the Galaxy Z Flip. It's pretty much just an expensive phone with old generation tech in it. It's got a Snapdragon 855 processor, which means absolutely nothing if you don't know what it is, but it's an old generation Snapdragon processor, and it folds. Ooh. Wow. Man, wow. I don't know. I don't really care for folding phones too much, so I think that's where we're going to end this episode, unless you have something else you want to talk about, Brandon.
Nah, I'm good, man.
All right, guys.
It all.
I guess that's going to be it for this episode of the Rantcast. If you enjoyed, as usual, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And go check out our previous episode. That was one of my favorites that we've ever done. It was going over some weird YouTube knockoffs. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. Subscribe to Brandon. All of his links are in the description below. But until the next video, guys, that is going to be it. Thank you for watching.